Hello and welcome. My name is James from the DSO Imager channel. Tonight I'm going to do a video on my latest target, IC4603. Now last year I did a 4-panel mosaic with my 70mm refractor, the SV70T, and the ASI 530MC of the Rho Oph region. And that's what you're seeing here. Right, so we got Antares down here, and we got M4, and this area right here, this is actually IC4603. Now, while I was working on this last year, I thought different areas warranted attention on their own. And so I decided to point my 115mm refractor at this area to see what we can do here, see if we can get some more detail, because there's a lot of nice wispy clouds in this area, and it's still pretty colorful even over here. And so that's what I did. I shot this area with my Astronomik's AT115 EDT and my ASI 1600 mono. The filters I used was the Astronomik L2 filter and then the ZWO RGB filters. So now for this video, I'm not going to show all of the processing that I did. Here's the Luminance channel. It's about, I think it's close to 10 hours. And this has already been worked on with dynamic background extraction and deconvolution. So, I mean, just looking at this Luminance, I was getting pretty excited because just looking at this, I could tell that there was definitely some potential. Now, imaging this target was a bit of a gamble, sort of, and a bit of a... So I was waiting for the Milky Way to rise, and so it was kind of a parking target, and I wasn't sure how well this would turn out. But when I worked on this Luminance, I was pretty excited. Now, the color presented some trouble for me. Here's the blue. And here's the green, and here's the red. And I mean, in of itself, just to point out, these are not stretched, but in of itself, none of these look too bad, but I am having a problem with the green. And the issue is that the flat was not correcting for this image. Now, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see a little bit of darkness in these corners. And what was going on is that it's from the filter. It's a little bit of vignetting on the edges. Now the flat's normally correct for that. I think the problem was at some point in the past I was troubleshooting what turned out to be a USB cable between the filter wheel and the camera, and I had turned off the unidirectional option for the filter wheel. So the thing is, with these ZWO filter wheels, they're not as precise as some of the more expensive ones out there, and when you're this tight, where it stops, where it's positioning is important. And so if it spins one direction, this vignetting can be worse or not so bad. And with the unidirectional mode disabled, it'll just take the shortest route to that filter, so it can go left or right, and that's what gives you a little bit of variability in its position. If the unidirectional is enabled, then it spins one way around, so even if it's just one filter off, it'll go the whole distance, and it's more precise that way. Now, what I should have done was just reshot flats, although I suspect the results I got here with the green filter is not consistent, meaning there's lights with both positions, and so I decided to just tackle it in processing. And this is with dynamic background extraction, so it doesn't look too bad. It looked much worse without dynamic background extraction. So I use the LRGB combination tool to put these three together. And that's what I ended up with. Right, so now the thing is, my biggest light pollution source is southeast. So this target rises right over that. So that's already throwing in some gradients. You can see the purple corners now, right? And I mean that's how we know it's that confirms that it's the green, because we're getting blue and red. The green's not correcting out, and that created problems for me because it kind of mixed in with the natural faint HA that you have in this area. And in fact, I processed this image a couple of times, and I got a little carried away with the SCNR tool, and I obliterated all of the HA inadvertently in a quest to process this out. So we'll go through the steps that I did here to process this. Alright, so it's unstretched. Now here's a mask, and you can tell what I'm going after on this mask, right? So I'm trying to deal with these corners. And this is after stretched, and you can see a little bit of work was done. And here's the blur. Now, one thing about this blur. Now, usually when I do LRGB processing, I put the RGB together, stretch it, and then I blur it. And what this does is it eliminates all the color noise, and then you add the luminance, and the luminance is where all your detail lives anyway. So we don't care about smoothing out details. We just want to smooth the possible images as that we can get. Now, normally, the way I would do this is I would go down to noise reduction, go to MMT, and disable these layers just like this, and then apply this to the color image, and it does a really good job of smoothing it out. But this time around I thought I'd try something a little bit different, and I just used Noise Exterminator with the maxed out smooth option, and I mean it did a super nice job. I mean, are you guys seeing any noise in this? I mean, this is as smooth as glass here. Alright, and so this is what I get after adding the LRGB. Now, we don't see a whole lot of color in here, right, because the luminance is pretty strong, but we'll work on that. And so this did show some potential here. Alright, so as usual, I made a copy of this by cloning it, which is this, and I continued to do some more work on there. So we removed the stars using Star Exterminator, and again, it did a fantastic job. I think a new version of Star Exterminator had just come out before I did this, but yeah, the improvements to Star Exterminator are pretty good. And so yeah, you can see I did a little, it's really hard to see the differences here, but now I'm adding another mask, inverting, right, subtract green. I mean, we can still see, but I was very aware of this area. I was trying to protect this natural HA. There's another mask. I could work on the outer areas. This is, you got some red in there, but this is the yellow being reflected off of Antares, which I thought was pretty cool. And just stepping through some more curves work. Yeah, so this corner was really bad, and I actually made a mask just to deal with that. So invert it, subtract green again. Then I wanted to work on this down here. Now we're doing some work in this blue area in here, and it's all curves work. Yep, I wanted to create more contrast in this yellow area, because there is a lot of neat structure in here that was being blown out a little bit by that brightness. So you can see I'm pulling back, creating some contrast. Now I'm wanting to adjust the color here, and so I'm inverting it. You can see all the blue now. Now I'm turning my attention to this dark area. By using masks like this to focus in different areas, it makes it easier. It gives you more control over the work. You just have to be really careful, because if you do too much and then you remove the mask, it looks artificial. You can tell that certain areas will work differently, and the goal here is to be real subtle and make it look like one complete image. So I got to this point, and this was near the end. I made another clone of this, moved it over to another workspace, and I renamed it Starless. And I did some work on the stars. Now you see I've got a preview box in here, and so the purpose of the preview box is to experiment on different things and see how they turn out. Now typically what I do is I pull back on curves, but because of the way the stars came out on this, I thought that morphological transformation would work pretty well. And so there you can see the difference. Let's get to brighter stars here. Yeah, see that? And I have it over here so you can see the settings that I used here. So basically I dialed back the amount because on its default setting it was doing too much. If you go too aggressive with it, you start to get like funny shapes of the stars. They don't look round anymore. And then I did my usual increase saturation. You know, I invert. Even though this is RGB, you still can get a little bit of a purplish hue sometimes in the stars. And that's what I did. And I thought these stars came out pretty good. And so after that, just simply add them together. And I believe that is this here. Alright, so now I wanted to change the orientation, so I rotate it, and after I did this, I noticed that we had a little bit of a problem down here in the corner. So remember what I said earlier about you got to be careful when doing work with masks, because it can look obvious, and this is exactly what I'm talking about here. Right, so while I was working on this yellow, this corner was masked off along with everything else, and yeah, I mean that's a pretty artificial look. So I created another mask, and which you can see there, and I made some adjustments, and now that's blended in pretty good. So I do like 90% of all my work, 99% of all my work in PixInsight, but I do use Photoshop for a couple things. I am not a Photoshop expert by any means. I'm far more comfortable in PixInsight, but even with my limited Photoshop skills, there's a few things that Photoshop does easier. And so this is after taking it into Photoshop, and all I did is I adjusted the brightness and contrast a little bit, the sliders that they have in there, just make it really easy to do a nice contrast. And sometimes I'll tweak saturation in Photoshop, but I don't believe I did it this time. Now you see I've got a mask applied. Let's reveal that mask. And so what's going on here is this area was a little darker than I wanted. I wanted to add a little bit of color. When I look at my my mosaic, this area is pretty blue. So I created this mask so I can kind of focus on that a little bit, and there. So very subtle, but you can see a little bit of increase in the blue. Now the mask is interesting. I'll show it one more time. How do you get a mask to isolate these areas? Well, it turns out I added two masks together. And I thought this would be pretty cool to show briefly in this video. Right? Sometimes you're just trying to isolate a certain area and you can't quite get it. You can't get it with a single range mask. You can't get it with a game mask, where the game mask does some weird things. But you can do it with, say, like a mix of a color mask and a range mask or something like that. And so I had these two masks, and I produced this one here. So this is the combination of the two. And the way I did this was with this pixel math formula. So it's just simply max and then your first part and your second part. And so this, by the way, can be a pretty handy function for adding masks together and, you know, anything else you can think of. So pixel math for the win, right? And so anyway, that's it. That's the final image. So I thought this would be a neat project. You don't see this particular region called out too often. Usually we're all trying to get the wide field shots, and given the time of the year and the interest that I had, I thought I'd give some attention to the Antares neighborhood and get in a little bit closer. So that's all I had tonight. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and subscribe. I've got a lot of good content on this channel. Feel free to explore. There's a mix of tutorials and workflow videos such as this, and lots of good content coming up. So with that, have a good evening and clear skies.